$953,000 per month. That's what we're averaging for this apparel brand from email marketing and SMS over the last 3 months. When they came to us, they were doing about $4 to $6 million a year, but they couldn't scale past that because their CAC kept climbing. They actually had an email agency, but only about 25% of their revenue was coming from email and SMS, well below the 40 to 45% benchmark for a healthy apparel brand. Now, most of that 24% actually came from automated flows that just weren't set up properly. And the campaigns they were sending were just sent to everyone with zero segmentation and zero strategy. They were literally leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table every single month. We took them from 25% to 44% of their total revenue coming from email and SMS. We also increased their repeat purchase rate by 46% and increased their 90-day LTV by 53%. We also built them a system that runs whether or not they're launching new products. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down the entire system and exactly what we're running right now. So let's dive in. Okay, so I'm going to start with where things were off because honestly, most brands get this completely wrong, and these guys were absolutely not an exception. The first thing is just that their flows were generating revenue, but engagement rates were super low. So oftentimes what I'll see is like the flows are doing something in an account, but they're just not doing anywhere near as much as they could be. The best example that I have for this one was actually the welcome series. So it's their first touch point, and it was actually landing in spam. The thing that indicated this to us was just that like their open rates were between 20 and 30%. This is like one of the most common things, and it's like a hidden issue, a hidden spam issue that most brands don't realize is happening. But especially with the welcome series, if you're getting open rates within 20, 25, 30%, that's actually really not good for the welcome series. You should be shooting for like 55, 60, sometimes 70 plus, because what this is indicating is that a lot of these emails aren't even going to the inbox. They're not going to the primary inbox. They're going directly to spam. They do not pass go. They do not collect $200. At the end of the day, this is a huge issue because this is the first touch point that customers are having with you. And it's also that first touch point that ESPs are having with you and the customer as well. So if your first touch point ends up in spam, chances are all of your future emails are going to end up in spam unless you fix something quickly. The third thing was their list had a huge amount of unengaged people in it. And not only does this just cost more, like Klaviyo charges you for every person you have, but also it's giving, again, ESPs the wrong indication and the wrong indicators, because if you got a bunch of people who are not engaged, chances are they're probably going to look at that and be like, these guys are sending to a bunch of people who aren't engaged. They're probably sending either irrelevant content or they maybe bought the list or something like that, right? And that's not what they want. They ultimately want people to have a good user experience. And the fourth thing here is just their opt-in rates. Their opt-in rates were sub 5%. This is the most important thing when it comes to growing your list, is making sure that you're split testing and making sure that you're optimizing your pop-up so that you're growing at a 5 to 12% opt-in rate. Okay, so this is what their transformation looked like. So before, they were doing about $95,000 in revenue from email, $328,000 per month in overall revenue. Now after, and this is November, December, and January, they did $7 million in the last 3 months, and they've done $2.8 million from email, which is about 41% of their overall revenue. Beyond that though, here's what that meant for them. So after implementing these strategies, number one, they saw a 53% increase in their 90-day LTV. You can see the LTV or the 90-day LTV increasing here. And this was, we took over right around here. So you can see it start to increase, and it's falling now a little bit, but it's also much higher than where it was before and much higher than where it was in January of 2025 and previous to that as well. So that's a huge thing. That was up from $40 to $62. That is a huge impact. And what that allowed us to do, if you go back to here, is unlock more scale, because if your CAC is limiting your ability to scale on ads, you're not going to be able to push any harder. And honestly, like email is only going to do so much, right? However, what we were able to do with them is unlock more scale because we increased their 90-day LTV, and we also increased their repeat purchase rate by 46%. So what this meant for them was, number one, lower CAC. Number two is increased profit. Number three was increased margin to scale. And then number four is just able to push way harder in Q4. They went crazy in Q4 because they had a much higher LTV and a much higher repeat purchase rate. Okay, so this 3-step process is exactly what we do to help them generate nearly $1 million per month in email marketing revenue. It's exactly what I do for any brand who we're starting with as well. So it's called the loyalty loop system, and there's 3 different steps. The first is growth, and our target here is to grow your list as fast as humanly possible with people who are actually engaged and with people who are actually going to purchase. The second is flows. Now, there's so many different things you can do with flows. However, most brands like mess up even just the core flows. So just start there. Start with building out automated sequences that honestly just print money while you sleep. And the third thing is campaigns, right? And I'm going to dive into each one of these. So what ended up happening is we took them from 27% of revenue from email to over 40 to 45% of their revenue from email. Now, it kind of depends month to month, depending on what they're doing and depending on how much of a push month it is versus how much of a retention month it is. So the first thing is growth. This is the pop-up strategy we use with every single one of our clients. And this is actually what they had previously. They actually had a spin to win. I'm just using an example here. I'm not going to use their exact spin to win because I don't want to expose the brand, but basically they were using this spin to win mystery discount. It looked super tacky. It just like popped up and it was like spin to win and blah, blah, blah. Super annoying, super tacky. It was at like a 2 or 3% conversion rate. Another example here of a bad pop-up is one that asks for a bunch of different information. Like this one's first name, last name, email, and then also like asking people to actually opt in, like click a button here. And then, I mean, the language on this is just terrible as well. Now, what most brands get completely wrong with the pop-up is number one, it's super boring and it's oftentimes like a super generic, like subscribe for updates or join our VIP email list. Like no one cares. That's not telling you or telling the prospective customer what they're getting, right? Like ultimately what you have to think about is like, what am I getting? Or what is the customer getting out of doing the thing? Like, yeah, you're getting their email, but like, what are they getting out of it, right? So what we found is leading with an offer is much better than leading with nothing. And if you don't want to do an offer, if you don't want to do a sale or a promo or a free gift or something like that, that's fine. You just need to make sure that the language is compelling. It's not just like subscribe for updates because no one cares, right? The next thing here is poor timing. So either something that pops up right away or something that pops up in conjunction with another pop-up that's super annoying. Just think about user experience. Like if someone has to X out of like 3 different things, that sucks. It's really annoying, right? Or if it's too late. Like I've seen some brands where they have it like after 60 seconds or 90 seconds. And it's like, bro, just you want to make sure that you're getting as many people as possible. You don't want it to go right away, but you do want to make sure that you are at least like getting as many engaged people as possible, right? The third is just too many input fields. Like candidly, no one cares about the first name, last name. No one cares about the birthday thing. Like you can do that if there is some very strong meaning for it. But honestly, what I'd recommend is just collect the basic information, have some zero-party data information, and then have the email. Everything else is just like incremental increases, like not, and maybe even incremental decreases in your conversion rate, right? So like collecting a first name, sure, like there might be some opportunities to personalize an email, but there's also way better ways to personalize an email than just being like, hey, first name. That kind of sucks, right? And everyone does it, right? So how can we personalize better? Well, there's a lot of, I'll get onto that in a moment. So that would be number 3. Number 4 is just not optimized for mobile. The amount of brands that don't have pop-ups that are optimized for mobile is absolutely staggering to me. This brand was they're a $40-50 million brand, and they were using a bloody pop-up that looks like this on mobile and on desktop. And it honestly gave me an aneurysm because it's gross. The spin to wins also look gross on mobile. And it's just, again, annoying. Please, if you're using one of these, don't use it. And the last thing is just A/B testing. Honestly, even though we know, hey, this is a really good starting off point and this is a really good jumping off point for your brand, this is probably going to convert at over 5% in terms of like setting up a pop-up, we still A/B test different offers, different timing, different messaging, all of those different things, right? So those are the things to avoid. Now, here's how to actually create a winning pop-up. Now, this is pop-up from Gruns and a really good example of a pop-up that gathers some zero-party data here. And I'll kind of jump into exactly what they're doing and why this is a great pop-up. So the first thing is the layout. The layout is super important. And oftentimes what I see with pop-ups is it's like pop up and then enter your email or enter your first name and email or whatever, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's it. What we want to do is actually have a teaser. So similar to this, you'll notice that there's not actually an email field here at all, right? What this is doing is giving a micro commitment. So if someone clicks this button, if it's like, okay, number 1, you've got X amount off, right? Implying that they already have the thing. People want to avoid loss versus people wanting to gain something. right? That's number one. Number two is they've got a simple there's four options there. It's like, what do you want? What are you trying to solve? So again, collecting zero-party data in there, you can use that for other marketing. You can also use that to split and build out different branches in your welcome series and other series as well. But this is really important because we've noticed that it actually increases the opt-in rate. It sounds counterintuitive because you're like, well, I'm adding another step. Why would that increase your conversion rate? Well, it's because you're getting that micro commitment from people. If all you're asking here is to claim, share what problem you're trying to solve. Okay, are you trying to solve gut health, energy, blah, 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 right? Number one, you collect that zero-party data. But two, once people click that button, then they're directed to another page and it's an email step, right? Now it's, hey, you've got 52% off. Let us know where to send it to, kind of thing. Okay, cool. You did that. All right, now like basically finish signing up with SMS, right? Something along those lines. Now, if you want to create another offer for SMS, you can do that too. But really, like, you're getting a micro commitment at the teaser. People are saying, yeah, I want this thing. I'm going to click what I want. And what I'm trying to solve. Boom, they click that thing. Then it goes to the email step. Then they enter their email. They're like, yeah, okay, like obviously I need to get the discount code. And then SMS is another kind of like, it depends on if you're starting with SMS or email. If you already have SMS, or if you're starting with SMS, then absolutely add it in there. If you're not, then just don't do it yet. The next piece is the offer. So you'll see here, their offer is super clear. You've got 52% off. That is a whopping crazy good offer too, right? So they've got a very, very clear offer. And what's really important here is like whatever your offer is clarity. People should be able to look at the thing and be like, I know exactly what I'm getting if I provide my email, if I click this button, if I do whatever, right? So if it's 10% off, so you've got 10% off, you've got $10 off, you've got free shipping, you've got free socks, you've got a free gift, you've got a mystery gift, whatever it is, make sure that offer is abundantly clear. The other thing that they're doing here is the image pops, right? Like they've got a little image here. This one is just optimized for mobile. So keep that in mind as well as when you're building this out. Now, in terms of targeting and how you're going to want to set this up, number one, have it on exit intent. Number two, usually we'll do like an 8 to 12 second delay to start. And the third thing is you're going to want to include certain high intent pages, but you're also going to want to exclude things like the checkout, right? You don't want like a pop-up popping up as people are trying to add their credit card information or something like that, right? The last thing here is just what we should be looking for. So since implementing this for this brand, not Grunz, different brand, the one I'm talking about here that we're doing about $1 million. So the result that we got for our clients after implementing this was their 2 to 3% opt-in rate went up to an 8 to 9% opt-in rate. And we started collecting zero-party data, which is huge, right? So for you guys, what I recommend is shooting for between 5 and 12%. It's gonna depend on your offer. It's gonna depend on the time of the year. It's gonna depend on a whole variety of different factors, time delay, things like that as well. But shoot for at least 5 to 12%. Okay, the second piece here is the flow strategy. Now, I'm gonna break this down into two different pieces, the pre-purchase and the post-purchase. So pre-purchase flows are super, super important because it's basically just automated sequences that print and create revenue for you while you sleep. They help to educate customers. They help to meet people where they're at in their customer journey, whether they just initiated checkout or whether they just viewed a product. And they also help to increase your conversion rates. As you know, if you're running an e-com brand, you're gonna have 95% of people who never purchase, right? If you've got a great conversion rate, that's 5%, right? 95% of those people will not purchase right away, right? So what we wanna do is we want to, number one, see if we can increase the people who are gonna purchase right away by implementing some of these pre-purchase flows, but also what can we do with campaigns? What can we do with post-purchase? What can we do with other things down the line that can help to increase our conversion rates down the line too? So the pre-purchase flows you're gonna wanna focus on is number one, the welcome series. This is just welcoming people to the brand, giving people the offer, telling people a little bit about who you are in the tone of voice of like your brand, number one, but also how it relates to the customer. The mistake I see a lot of brands make is like they will have this welcome series and they'll be like, here's why we're sick. And then no one really cares. It's like, okay, what are you doing for me? And if it's a purpose-driven brand, for example, well, how are you going to make me feel? How does the thing that you are doing as the brand make me feel, right? So you want to consider that as you're going through these as well. Browse abandonment. So for people who have hit a product page and not made it any further, abandoned cart, which is obviously people who have made it to the cart and not made it any further, and then abandoned checkout. If you want a full run through on exactly how to do all of these, you can check out my YouTube channel. There is a extensive review on each one of these, but those videos alone would probably take an hour for me to go through right now. The problem is though, with all of these is that so many brands have these set up, but so many have just incredibly generic flows or flows that are just not anywhere near optimized. That's the issue, right? There is a huge difference. And I always use this golf analogy because I can go and play golf, but I am not making the PGA Tour anytime soon. There's a difference between me being able to hit a golf ball. Sometimes it goes straight, sometimes it doesn't. And me being able to compete on the PGA Tour, right? It's just completely different realms, right? And that's exactly the same thing with flows. Anyone can create a flow. Genuinely, anyone can create a flow. If you follow my YouTube channel, if you follow the videos on there, you'll create a flow that is better than most brands. However, there's still a lot of things at play that I don't go over specifically in that video too. Next piece is the post-purchase funnel. So this is really important, and this is how we were able to increase their repeat purchase rate by 46%. The post-purchase funnel is when the emotional commitment is the highest, right? They just parted with their hard-earned money, and if all they get is a generic Shopify email, engagement drops, loyalty suffers, and it's sadness. Customers like, okay, cool, yeah. And then they get this email and they're like, oh, yeah, Like maybe they're a little bit excited still, but honestly, you should be doing your job to make sure that they are as excited as they possibly could be. So what we want to do here is in that post-purchase sequence, number one, thank them. Number two, validate their purchase. So be like, hey, this isn't where you want to be like, okay, cool, they purchased, we're good, we got their money, right? This is where you want to hype them up, get them fired up, get them excited, validate the fact that they just parted with their hard-earned money and it was the right decision. This is like especially important for brands who have a very high AOV or who are selling an expensive product, but it's really, really important. And the third thing is excite. So we want to thank, we want to validate, and we want to excite. And then finally, if this is relevant for your brand, some brands, if you're selling like a one-time purchase product, a win back maybe doesn't make sense, but for apparel, for skincare, for supplements, for any of those types of brands, for like food and beverage, there's an opportunity to incorporate a win back flow in here too. Now, the problem here that I see with most brands is they just don't have anything, right? It's literally just like, thank you for your purchase. You want to like our Facebook page, right? And if that looks like yours, I'm sorry, but that's just the reality. That's like how so many brands operate. But it is the highest emotional touch point you can have with a customer. And you can also get them to buy more, right? Okay, so step 3 is your campaign strategy. Now, the problem that these guys had, and the problem that most brands have, to be honest, is a batch and blast approach, right? Why this is bad is it trains your list to ignore you, right? If you're just sending the same thing to 100,000 people 4 times a week, it is gonna just train people to ignore you because it's not actually relevant to them. If I'm getting emails from Lululemon and all of those emails, some of the emails are relevant and some of them are about women's apparel and some of them are about like kids apparel and whatever, like some of that shit is not relevant for me, so I don't really care. So what's gonna happen is your deliverability will tank over time. That generic messaging will just lead to lower engagement rates, lower open rates, lower click rates, because you train people to believe this content is not relevant to me. And if it's not relevant, they're gonna slowly tune it out. It might not happen instantly, but it will happen over time. The fix here is segmented, targeted campaigns. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that we can do this, but the best one is RFV. So it's basically just looking at recency, frequency, and monetary value. How we look at this within our agency is like, hey, how recently did someone do something? How, like, was it a 30-day, like, have they engaged in the last 30 days, the last 90 days, the last 180 days, whatever it is? What did they do? Did they click? Did they open? Like, to what degree did they engage? How frequently have they done that? So have they visited a product page like 5 times? Have they visited a product page 10 times? Did they never visit a product page, but did they go to a collection page? What are we looking at here and what have they done? And then finally is that value. Value is only relevant really when it comes to purchases, right? Have they purchased or have they not purchased? And then it could be like, have they purchased once? Have they purchased twice? Have they purchased 3 times or have they purchased 4 or more times, right? Looking at that and understanding how we might be able to segment based off of RFV. So email, you can kind of look at like this 30, 60, 90 day, 180 day engaged segment, and that's usually like opened or clicked. With SMS, you can't track opens. So what we usually do is we'll look at clicks, obviously, but also we'll look at people who have engaged on the site and received an SMS. Because sometimes what happens, people will receive an SMS, they'll be like, oh, okay, cool, like, yeah, they get it, and then they look at it and they're like, oh shit, yeah, like I want to go check that out, and then they just go Google it, right? So if someone's received an SMS and they've also been active on site, that is something that we would indicate as like a degree of engagement, right? It wouldn't be as highly engaged as someone who's clicked on the SMS, but it still is a degree of engagement, and it's like someone who's active and looking at your shit. Okay, so these are 3 types of campaigns that absolutely print, and honestly, this is where we spend a lot of our time with this client. So the first thing is product drops and launches. There's a lot of different ways you can structure this, but product drops are really exciting for VIPs, for people who are repeat purchasers, etc. You can offer exclusivity through SMS, exclusivity through email. You can also do a lot of things leading up to those drops. If it's a new colorway, it might not be as, you might not go as hard as if it's like a whole new product, right? Like we had this client, for example, they sold a bunch of t-shirts and then they were like, okay, you know what? We're going to make hoodies out of these t-shirts. Not actually, but like we're going to make hoodies of the same design, right? So what we did is we had a whole product launch scheduled for that. So we did a teaser and we did like kind of like a warm up. Basically, it's like a warm up period where you're getting people excited, you're getting people fired up, and then eventually you have this drop and then you have a drop reminder. Second is just content campaigns. So this is just, it doesn't have to be promos. What we did with this brand, they are a purpose-driven brand. And what we did with them is we tried to build trust, tried to build education, tried to build brand story, and actually shared other people's stories about the apparel that they were buying. What this does does is, because it's a more purpose-driven brand, you get other people attached and you get other people's buy-in, and you get other like prospective customers reading that and they're like, oh man, like this person had a really positive interaction with the brand, or this person bought this thing and then that led to XYZ thing. That makes me feel good. Like we did a lot of these story related content and a lot of like review related content as well, because they have a ton of reviews and a ton of really great stories behind the product as well. The third piece, especially for Q4, is just re-engaging people pre-Q4, right? So I know we're in February right now, but at the time of recording this video, however, as you approach Q4, what we want to do is make sure we're re-engaging people, and not only through Q4, actually, we want to try to re-engage people consistently. Like if someone has dropped out of our 90-day engaged window, what we'll try to do is re-engage those people monthly, maybe every 2 months, maybe it's a little bit more frequently. It kind of depends on brand and the volume that they're sending, but that is really important, right? Because we don't want to send to 500,000 people who are unengaged when we could just send to 200,000 people who are very engaged. Now, the last two pieces is one, just looking at sales engagement and then building out strategic offers based off of what people are engaging with the most. So testing out different offers, different promos, things like that. And finally, segmenting your list. This is really, really, really important. Basically looking at the different levels of, like, again, going back to RFP actually, right? Looking at recency, frequency, and monetary value, and then creating segments based off of that, and then giving different people different offers based off of how far they made it. Like, for example, someone who has purchased from you 5 times might be interested in getting like a larger bundle, but someone who has never purchased from you before, maybe they just want to like test the waters. So maybe that offer is more of like an intro offer and an offer just to like get them across the finish line. And when it comes to testing and optimization, this is a huge piece. And this is a piece that most brands don't really do a lot of. The first piece, whether it's flows or whether it's campaigns, the first piece that I want to test is always going to be the thing that will move the leverage, or will be highest to lowest leverage. So what's going to move the needle the most? The first thing is going to be the offer. This is going to be the thing that will 100% of the time move the needle the most. If you got a 2% off offer versus a 20% off offer, totally different, right? You're going to have totally different engagement, totally different purchases, totally different conversion rate, etc. Right? The second piece would be timing. So this might be time delays for flows. This could also be certain times of the day or certain days of the week for campaigns. Third is segmentation. And honestly, like segmentation kind of fits into 2 as well in a degree, but like we're looking at, hey, what segments are we sending to and which segments are most relevant to receive this content? Fourth would be subject lines. So subject lines will help to improve open rates. And if we get more opens, we will most likely get more clicks, assuming you're not just clickbaity, right? And then finally is content type. So this is like what is actually in the email, what the content is about, the images, the copy, etc. Okay, so kind of wrapping this up, the common mistakes that I see very, very consistently is number 1, batch and blast the entire list. Number 2 is just ignoring mobile optimization. Number 3 is generic messaging to all segments. Number 4 is discount strategy with all flows. This is actually a note that I'll make. If you decide not to go and watch those flow videos, don't start with a discount, right? Don't start with like, here's 10% off, you forgot something, right? Start with handling the objections that are non-price related and then get into the price related objections. The fifth thing here is just almost always no flow beyond like an order confirmation for a lot of brands. Okay, and that's pretty much that. So if you do have a brand doing over $100,000 a month and you don't want to do this yourself, you can apply for our team to help you with it. You will get a complimentary 75-point audit on exactly kind of the areas where you can improve on. If you are interested, there should be a link below this video. So go ahead, click on that, and hope to chat with you soon. Thanks so much and have a great day.